Wise for Africa have been part of the drive to push government to bolster legislation in dealing with gender-based violence. Advocate Brenda Madumise is the director of Wise for Africa, and she joins us now in studio. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Good evening, Peter.
Yeah, it's 2018, the first one.
Yeah.
Government is promising 13 billion rand. I mean, that's a huge amount of money. How much progress has been made since 2018, and 13 billion, will that help?
You want an honest
appraisal.
Right. So there was a reason why this summit was held now in 2022, right? There's motivation and rationale why we should have it. And the motivation, we are told, is that we take stock of what has happened since 2018, right? Remember, in 2018, we put 24 demands before government. And one of the first demand was that we need to have a summit, the first summit on gender-based violence, really to bring South Africans together and understand what we are dealing with, right? And then to intervene correctly and appropriately. And that's why you then ended up with a national strategic plan. You can't have a government coming back to us in 2022 and telling us they're going to allocate 13 billion when they should have done that once the strategic plan was given to them, because the strategic plan is your roadmap. It's a blueprint that all of us must rally behind and ensure that we implement it, right? It deals with all sorts of things. It deals with prevention, which is at the center. So we can't spend money on many things other than concentrating on prevention. And as we do that, we strengthen the criminal justice system, because the criminal justice system is not the answer, the only answer. Our answer lies in us as individuals, as communities, as the collective, working on getting rid of this scourge. And what are we going to do as individuals first, as communities, as leaders in our respective fields? What are we going to do to stop it and stem this scourge, right? So the government did not do that. In fact, if you listen to the president yesterday, he says to all of us, mea culpa, I'm so sorry, with humility. And we all eat out of his palm because we think once he has said that, everything is okay. No, it's not okay, because he should have demonstrated leadership at the point when that national strategic plan was given to him as a leader of this country, that he ensures that is given the appropriate resources and he demands accountability on it. So we end up in 2022 looking for accountability.
So if that strategic plan had been implemented and properly resourced, might we be further down the road?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Without a doubt. One, you would have had a national coordinating mechanism. At the moment, almost all of us who are working in this area, and I want to emphasize that it can't be a few individuals working in this area. It requires all of us. As Peter Ndoro sitting at the SABC, you've got an obligation, right? As an employee at SABC, but also as a brother, a father, and a colleague, to ensure that any violation that you come across, you speak about it. You attend to it, right? It's not dependent on some white knight who's going to say it must be addressed, and you stand back and say it's not my problem. So if we had done that and ensure that South Africans rally behind the strategic plan and they get to know about it. Most people had not heard of it, the NSP, the short version of it. They had not heard of it, right? But the government has got an obligation to communicate with its citizens on a daily basis. So why did they fail to do that, right? So we would have been a step further if we had done that. We would have had a coordinating mechanism, because we were not able to work in silos the way we are, and will continue. If we do work in silos, we're not going to get the scale and the impact that we're looking for, precisely because we're all over the show and no one is pulling us together to demonstrate, if we've invested 20 billion in fighting the scourge of gender-based violence in this country for the last 5 years, why is it that we don't have nothing to show for it? And the coordinating mechanism would have given us that answer. Why is it that we are not able to show the return on the investment that we are making on gender-based violence?
I sometimes get a feeling, though, that you can have plans, you can throw money at the problem, but in the end, actually, it is human beings that have to be better.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, whilst we say the right things, particularly in public, do we care enough to actually do anything about it? We know the person next door is being abused by our neighbor, and we do nothing. How do we change that? Because if we started there, all of everything else falls into place.
So, Peter, why is it that we look the other way? And we need to ask ourselves the question, why do we, as human beings, look the other way when another individual is being violated, someone who can't fight for themselves, right? Why do we look away instead of standing up and saying this is wrong? And if you don't want to be known that you are the whistleblower, you can place that call anonymously to say, my next door neighbor, I think there's a problem. And that's what is needed. That there has to be a mass mobilization of South Africans around understanding that it's okay for you to step in and report when you see the violation, right? Because some of these things don't happen by accident. You would have seen it before, right? And we might not be sure. And we can give you the benefit of the doubt. But once you see a woman being victimized at work, in the streets, I mean, as driving here just now, and a Rea Vaya bus passed. There's a driver, there's one woman in the bus and another gentleman. And a thought just went through my head to say, what if that woman gets violated in that bus, right? That's where we are as a country, where you have to be concerned and worried about a woman finding herself in that position. So the appeal should be, I need to be comfortable enough and to feel safe enough that I can ride a Rea Vaya bus at 9 o'clock in this country and nothing will happen to me. So what do we do to ensure that happens? So the Rea Vaya bus driver and the passengers in that bus, there has to be some consciousness, right? That is there to know that once I cross a boundary where I want to go to this woman and want to touch her without her consent, that I have violated her and it's not a good thing to do, and that someone in that bus will be able to say, no, stop it. Yeah.
All right, so what I know for sure in South Africa is our constitution is amazing and we've got great legislation.
Oh, yeah.
So where is it failing? You hear stories of people, young children even, going to police stations and being turned away and then dying.
Yeah.
We've been talking about police being educated and trained, having special constables on standby. It doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah. So fortunately for you today is that I led a clinic at the summit on South African Police Service. We dug deep on what needs to change, right? So 3 things that we came up with. And here's the thing from you that was a travesty with the South African Police today, is that the team that participated in that clinic at the summit was a team of women. Now, so we had to say it, that the leadership of the South African Police Service, it's male. Let's not pretend, right? And it's masculine in its posture and everything else. So you can't be sending women to the summit because you think gender-based violence is a women's problem, right? It's not a women's problem; it's a societal problem. So we did say we will raise this issue because the leadership, the General Masemula and the other commissioners of the entire country who are male should have been at the summit to understand what comes out of ordinary citizens, what they think about the South African Police Service. And they had us this afternoon, but it was a team of women who are very sympathetic because they understand the plight of those who are vulnerable and inexperienced.
I suppose
right?
it goes to this whole thing, it's a gender-based thing, send the women.
Send the women, right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the takeout of that clinic, and it will be part of the final document, is that we have agreed to take 9 police stations in the country, meaning they'll be in the 9 provinces, and come up with a blueprint for how a police station should function and the individuals who should be in those police stations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I wish we could talk for longer, and I think we should have these conversations more regularly, not
just when there's a summit or someone has been killed.
Because it must be conscientized.
That's part of the lingo.
Yeah.
Right? We should do that.
Advocate,
so I'm going to hold you to that.
I'm going to put my hand up and say I'm going to help you there for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming through.
It's a pleasure.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, we'll leave that there for the time being. Not great news. Money's been allocated, but you heard there from Treasury, they said it's hard to say where that money has been allocated, and that shouldn't be the case.